Hello. Hi guys, I am Ram from Great Learning, and this is our session on essential Linux commands. So guys, we basically be going to be learning about all the essential Linux commands there are that will help you guys to, jumpstart, learning about Linux. Okay, so before I do begin, I want a confirmation from you guys about how is my voice, is it audible or not, and can you guys if you guys can see the screen or not. All right. So till you guys give me that confirmation, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to tell you guys about something that we Great Learning have come up with. So we have come up with something called Great Learning Academy. If you are a regular viewer, then you guys already know about Great Learning Academy, and you've already heard me talk about it many times. And there is a specific reason why we promote it so much, because we want our students, whether they are college students, or whether you guys are trying to change careers, or if you're just school students also, we want you guys to learn more and more. So you might be thinking, what, you're telling us about this courses and all, like Great Learning Academy is about courses, and we are just students, right? So you expect us to pay so much and learn about these courses? Well, that's the thing, right? So Great Learning Academy is completely free. So you don't have to pay a dime or any paise. You don't have to pay anything. It's completely free. Just go ahead and type in greatlearning.in/academy, and you'll find a lot of different courses that we have over here. You might be interested in some courses that other people are not. Don't worry, we have a lot of diversified this group of courses. We have data science, machine learning, artificial intelligence, IT and software, in which we talk about full stack, and cybersecurity, cloud computing, finance, big data, digital marketing, and a lot more courses. You guys can actually go ahead and browse through the catalog over here and see what you like the most, and enroll for that course. And once you enroll for that course, complete the course, there'll be a quiz. Complete the quiz, and once you complete the quiz by with a passing mark, you will get a certificate, so which will help you out in your your beginning part of the career. If you are switching your career, then it will definitely help you form a foundational basis, or at the least it will give you a good direction towards where you actually want to go, right? If you are kind of lost and don't know what you want to do, go ahead and check out these courses, and they will definitely help you out. All right. So with that out of the way, let me come back and let me all right. So getting a feedback, my volume is a little low. All right. So I hope you guys can hear me a little bit better now. All right. So let me just bring up the chat on the side. You guys can't see it. It's on my phone. So let me just bring it up. All right. Yeah. So everyone's been like, okay, increase my volume. So I hope this is enough. If this is still not enough, go ahead and ping, send a comment. You know, talk about, tell me whether you can hear me properly or not. All right, so now let's actually talk about this session. So here, guys, we are going to be talking about all the essential Linux commands. So this is how I'm going to break it down. So I know there might be some beginners out there that might want to know about a Linux a little bit. So what I'm going to be talking about, like a Linux in over brief for about 10 to 15 minutes, and then we'll immediately start, the practical session where I start giving you guys the commands that you need to know. All right, and obviously feel free to leave a message in the comments. I will check them out, and if you guys have any questions, I'll try to answer them to the best of my knowledge. And always feel free to interact with each other, but do not spam the chat. That always disrupts the harmony of the chat, and some questions get buried, and I don't want people's questions to get buried, right? All right, so let's see if we have any regular viewers. Aha, so Kashyap is back again. Hello, welcome Kashyap. I see that you always come and say hi. That's really nice. And we have more viewers coming back to watch our sessions again and again. Okay, let's see if you guys have any initial questions. Okay, so nothing. Just telling me about what you guys know about. Sir, I wanted to know about difference between firmware and operating system. So Operating system, right? So yeah, actually I'll tell you that answer to that question when we get into it. So let's begin this session. So first, let's ask us a question: what is an operating system? Now, you guys might know what an operating system is already. It's your Windows, it's your Mac OS, or it's your iOS on your phone, or it's the Android on your Android phone. So it is a lot of different types of software that you use. So operating system is generally it's a system that is designed to act as an interface between whatever is there on your hardware and the application that you use. Now, there are generic operating systems and there are very specific operating systems. So the operating systems you guys might be familiar with are most of the generic ones, like your Windows and your Apple Mac OS and your Android and iOS. All of those are, generic operating systems. They basically provide a user interface to the users, that is us, and they allow us to do a multiple different things with the machine. So let's say that there is a user who wants to tell the machine that he wants to run a specific application. So he will do that through the use of the user interface, that is of the user interface of the operating system. Once he tells the operating system that I want to launch this specific app, the operating system will take the resources that are there in the hardware and divide them equally for the application to run. Now there are a lot of different things that go in the background of this, and I don't have the time to go into detail about this because our session is about Linux. So this is generally what an operating system is. An operating system is something that allows us to interact with the hardware to run our application. Now, the question here was, what is operating system versus firmware? So now you know what operating system is. Firmware is basically refers to like a smaller piece of code that that is used that is basically in your memory. Now, the operating system is basically the code that is running on the device that gives you all the services. So, firmware is similar in this task where it is a software. It is kind of like built into it. Now, so that's like the generic difference. Now, it's for more specific use cases. You won't use firmware to run your applications completely. You would use your operating system here. All right. So now let's move on to discuss what is Linux. So Linux, if we talk about it specifically, is not a operating system. It is the kernel within the operating system. You have a lot of different types of Linux based operating systems. So I want to make this clear. Linux is the kernel, and you use that kernel in a lot of different operating systems like your Ubuntu, like your RHEL or CentOS or Elementary. There's a lot of different Linux operating systems that you can make use of, right? So here I've mentioned it's an operating system, but it's a part of the set of open source operating systems, right? It is as simple as that. It's kind of like your Windows and Mac itself, right? And the Android you guys want to use on your phone, that is Linux based too. So you see that Linux is used in a lot of different locations, a lot of different purposes. Now, what are the benefits of using Linux? So there are a lot of benefits to using Linux, like it's open source. So generally, most of the operating systems that are Linux based are open source. So you don't have to worry about paying for it. Now there are paid ones too, but you generally don't have to worry about an operating system if it's open source. And then it's highly flexible. Now being highly flexible basically means that you can shape a Linux operating system according to your needs. If you have a specific networking need, then you can download patches for it or download certain plugins for it that allow you to make it more network specific over that in that case. Now if you want to run it for development purposes solely, then what you can do is you can modify your Linux operating system, Linux based operating system, to make sure that it helps you out when you're developing your particular software. And we talk about the lightweight nature of Linux. A lot of Linux operating systems are very lightweight. Now obviously you have your general purpose ones that are a little heavy, but even those ones are lighter than our casual operating systems, or more like conventional operating systems like Windows. Now if you guys use Windows, it might already be in your system, but if you're someone who's dual booted or someone who's went from Linux to Windows, then that size of a Windows image is pretty big. It can be like 7 8 GB, right? That's a lot. Whereas your operating system that is based on Linux is pretty lightweight generally. It's like 3 to 4 GB at max. And it's highly configurable. That means that you can make and change any settings you want within a Linux operating system. You can't have the same thing in Windows and Mac OS because those are, managed experiences. Those companies that make those operating system, they lock their systems in specific ways that you can't change certain things. Now in Windows you can, unlock them by doing certain things, but in Linux there's no such locks. You, if you want to configure something, you can go ahead and configure it without having that kind of issue. It's like comparing. I think good example is Apple. Apple, you guys know that configurability is very low versus your Android. Android, you can change a lot of different things, right? So that. And fewer malware. Now it's fewer malware because Linux is not a very conventionally used software, so the amount of malware that is developed is generally less. We go for the things that are more abundant, like Windows systems. And awesome for development, so developers really love using Linux because of the certain plugins and the configurability it provides us. Now if you are a developer and you say that no, I don't like Linux, that's all right. It's always a personal preference. You can even be using Windows, or you can even be using a Mac OS. So that's that. And it's very stable. Now this can depend. Now don't take my word for it. Some operating systems can be unstable. Maybe a new release is very experimental and it's not stable, but generally when we talk about Linux, we talk about a stable environment. And it has a very large community, so you always have a lot of people contributing and talking about Linux also. All right, and the last one is performance. Now Linux generally is very lightweight, so it gives you a lot more performance. Now I have some questions in the chat that I think I want to answer. So Afroz Khan asks, difference between Unix and Linux. So that's a good question, because sometimes, or a lot of times, people get confused between the difference between both of these things. Are these the same thing? Is Linux and Unix the same thing? Why do they get put together if they're different? What is the thing? I want to know about it, right? So let me tell you guys. Let me see if there are any other questions. All right, so no other questions. All right, so the difference between Unix and Linux is that Unix was one of the first operating systems, not one of the first operating systems. It was one of the earlier operating systems. It would be better phrasing of it. It was developed by Ken Thompson and Dennis Ritchie back in 1970. They worked under Bell Labs for AT&T. Now, it was written in C, and it was a very good operating system that was used in a lot of different places, in a lot of different business environments, and wherever there was a need for a good operating system, right? And it also influenced amazing operating systems like Mac. So your Mac is based on your Unix operating system, and other operating systems also that are based on Unix are Solaris and AIX. So it was a paid operating system. Like you had to pay the licensing fee to use Unix. So what is the difference over here? So Linux was developed by a person called Linus Torvald. Now he didn't solely build it, but he did a lot of the major part. So he got to name it. So that's why it's called Linux. So Linux was developed back in 1991. Now it was developed with the philosophy of being an open source operating system. So what Linus thought was, there's no good operating system that is like Unix that he can make use of. So he made his own kernel. So he wrote the kernel from scratch. The Linux kernel was written from scratch by himself, and some contribution from other people. So once he made it, right, so he made it with the thought of making it like Unix. Now the Unix's source code wasn't available to him. What he did was he basically copied the behavior of Unix. He wanted to make an operating system that behaved like Unix, but wasn't Unix. So Unix and Linux don't share any source code. They're basically two operating systems that behave similarly, because Linux was designed to behave like Unix. The working philosophy, the design philosophy, all of that. The difference was that Unix is paid and Linux is an open source software. And the person who made it also promotes or encourages the distribution of open source softwares. So that's what the difference is here, right? Unix is like a complete operating system, whereas Linux is a kernel. As I told you guys, again, when it is packaged with different distributions, it becomes a complete operating system, right? So if we give you guys different examples, we have a lot of operating systems. You guys, some of you guys may know about Ubuntu. Ubuntu is a very popular Linux operating system that comes with a lot of already, installed in some Dell laptops or some laptops. Then you have other operating systems like Red Hat Enterprise Linux or CentOS, the community version of it. And you have Elementary, you have Debian, you have Arch Linux, you have OpenSUSE, you have Alpine, you have Fedora, and you have Ubuntu, different versions of Ubuntu. So you have a lot of different choices over here to choose in what kind of operating system you want to use. All of them have Linux as the base kernel, but they have made their own changes within it and added more packages to it, right? One more operating system that I don't think I've mentioned here is Kali. Kali is a very specific example because Kali is generally used for security testing. So it's made with that in mind, right? And Ubuntu is more of a generic one. So these are the different operating systems available. Okay, so I have more questions. What is the typical size of a swap partition in Linux? All right, I don't remember that. I'll have to check it and I'll let you know. We have one more question. We have a question, is Mac run through Linux? No, it is based on Unix. How to create a partition drive on Linux? So you can use a software for that. I think it's called G partition. Uh, I'll have to check and tell you that also. Okay. So let's just quickly go through the architecture. Sorry, guys. So we will go through the architecture. We have hardware, we have the kernel, we have the shell and application. So kernel is the one that does all of the core things. Shell is the one that gives us the user interface for the applications to run, and hardware is the one that provides us the resources. Let me just show you the components of it. You have the schedulers in kernel, you have the file system, security, networking, and drivers. And then you have the libraries, so system software, and user process. So your operating system is basically this, all of these things to combine. Kernel plus system libraries plus system software plus user processes. That is your operating system. And all of it sits on a hardware. All right, so some basic concepts within Linux are your kernel, your shell. I've already talked about kernel, that does all the core part of it, like managing processes, distributing resources. Shell is the one that allows us to, do things. Basically, if you want to run a particular process, you give the command through a shell. And the file system basically helps you store files. And the package manager basically is like a downloading manager that allows you to download certain packages and install and remove them. And you have users, you have different kinds of users, you have root users and you have user groups, and you have certain users there, and definitely the processes that run behind. All right, so we're not going to go through the installation and setup because I assume that you guys already know about all of the setup and installation. So what here I'm going to do is I'm going to basically run the Ubuntu image. Now, if you want to know how to set up your Ubuntu on a virtual box, now virtual box basically will allow you to run Ubuntu within your Windows system. So you guys can see this is my Windows system and I have a virtual box, and within my virtual Windows system, I can start running my Ubuntu operating system, right? Okay, so you need your Ubuntu image that you can download from Google. Just go ahead and type Ubuntu image. It will, the first download link you get, you select that one. Yeah, so you download Ubuntu desktop. Once you get the image for that, download VirtualBox and start running it over here, right, by clicking new. So let me just run Ubuntu over here. All right, so someone's asking, Subha Lakshmi is asking, how much can be partitioned for Linux and Windows OS? So yeah, over here. So Subhalakshi is you if you want to dual boot your system to have both Windows operating system and Linux, that's a good choice. That gives you a lot of flexibility. It really depends on your use case. If you want to use Windows primarily and you want to Linux for some kind of project, then you make the partitions accordingly. Where let's say you have 1 TB of Windows, you have 1 TB of hard drive space, and you divide that with like 800 to your Windows system and 200 to your Linux system. That is, if you are using Windows often and you're using Linux just in few random cases. But if you are a person who's more on using Linux, or you're intent on making it your main, operating system, then go ahead and give the hard drive space to your Linux. This is because the formats that are used for the certain drives that these operating system can read, they can be limited. Sometimes the Linux drive that you have created can't be run, read by Windows, so you have to give it a specific formatting of that. So that's why you divide it according to your need of the whole thing. Oh yeah, so Arvind's chipping in by saying swap partition can be 2 into the size of physical memory size. Now I don't know if that is true. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that is true. Fine. Thank you for chipping in, Arvind. Virtual memory machine ran execution. Okay, we have a issue. It's not running. Okay, I don't have time to set all of this up, so this is what I'm gonna do. I just launch a virtual machine on AWS so that I can show you how the terminal works and everything. Generally, we would work on this, and if you want to see a successful installation of operating system on this, then what you can do is you can basically check out our other video. Moderator will link it in the chat. We have a live session where I go a lot more into depth about Linux, and I even tell you guys how you can install it. All right, and if you are more interested, you can go ahead and check out Great Learning Academy. We have a Linux course over here, a basic intro over here that will help you guys step by step into how you can install Linux with VirtualBox, right? So I'm just gonna take the easy method. I wouldn't recommend it for you guys. If you're dual booting, that's also awesome. You can just, if you're dual booted your system, then you don't need any of these methods. Yeah, Afroz is right. Kali Linux is the distribution of Linux. And someone's asking Linux versus Kali Linux. Now, I don't know the specifications like what source code is different and all, but generally, your Linux kernel is, it can be used for a lot of different operating systems, whereas Kali Linux is for specific security testing. So, if you want to test particular security features of a web application or some other system, then you make use of Kali Linux because it comes with certain distribution packages. Those packages help you perform all those things. And if you want to become a hacker, then Kali Linux is a good option for that. So guys, I'll give you a basic into what I'm doing here. I'm basically launching a virtual machine on AWS instead of my system. There's a free tier, so I don't have to worry about this. And I'll be connecting it through my SSH client. You can directly SSH into it if you want. I just find it easier to have my SSH client. I don't have to type in the long command, though it is cooler to do that. All right. Okay, so basically I've launched an Ubuntu instance over here. You guys can see this is Ubuntu at this particular IP. That means that I'm accessing the virtual machine as the user Ubuntu. Okay, so let's begin with all of the essential commands. Dhron is asking, you're using Linux in AWS. Yes, I'm using Linux in AWS. So I've launched an Ubuntu in AWS, Ubuntu Linux VM. All right. Okay. So the first command that I want to talk about is our normal cd command. So if you want to traverse through all of the directories in Ubuntu, how would you do it? Right. So if you have the generic desktop installation, then you can, just use the UI, the GUI that is given to you. Even in Ubuntu, you have a GUI. That's the case. You can also use the terminal. You can type in Control T and the terminal will open up in Ubuntu. Okay, so I can't show it to you guys right now, but just imagine it to be. Or if you have Ubuntu, just try that out. And when you open up your terminal, right? So terminal is where you put in all of your command lines. Like whatever command you want to give to your operating system, you give it through the terminal, or you run a particular software. So first, I want to show you guys the command that is the cd command. So the cd command basically helps you traverse through all the different directories of your operating system. So if you want to travel from your home to another directory, then you use the cd command. So let's say that I want to go to home, right? I will press cd home. I will go to cd home. Just hold on a second, guys. Yes. Okay. So over here, you guys can see that I went to the home directory. Now, how do you check what directory you are currently in? So the command for that is the pwd command. So this is an amazing command that basically lets you see what directory you are in. So right now I'm in home directory. So if you are beginner and you don't know what these directories are basically like folders. Like home is your folder, and you go to your home folder, right? So let's say I open my Windows folder over here and I go to this PC. So when I open it up, you can see this PC is basically a directory. If I go into local C drive, so this is my directory. If I go into program files, so see, this is my directory. Program files is my directory. It is also like a folder, right? So you can call a folder a directory also. So same case over here, we can go to home, and home is a directory. Okay, now if you want to go to a specific directory, use the cd command, and if you want to check out a current directory, use the pwd command. All right, now what happens when you want to check the contents of a directory? So let's say I am in home and I want to see what is there in the directory. So I will use a command called ls, which basically lists down all the files that are there in the current directory. So right now there is only one file or one directory within my home directory, that is Ubuntu. So I will head to Ubuntu. I will say cd ubuntu, and I will be inside Ubuntu directory. So this you squiggly line you guys see. So this is basically shows you your home directory, like you basically this directory slash home slash user. So we are in the user Ubuntu in the home directory, right? So if you ever wanted to go back, you're lost or something, then you would just type in cd this squiggly mark, which is basically above your tab button. Forgot the name for this. There's a specific name for it. I think it's tilde. I'm not sure. So you put in cd and this squiggly mark, which is above your tab and next to your one, and you press enter, and you will go to it. That is your home Ubuntu, right? Now we learn about like a few commands. Now, ls was one of the commands. If I type in ls, I don't get anything over here, right? So this is basically showing me there's nothing. Now I can head to something called a root directory also. To go to a root directory, I will type in cd slash. So it will take me to the root directory. If I do an ls, you guys can see all the things that are there for the Ubuntu operating system to run. And like your bin, your dev, your home, your OPT, your root, your temporary, your var, and all of those things, right? So you can go, this is our root directory. If I do a pwd, you can see we are in the root directory, right? So that is different from our user directory. Okay, so now we saw that ls basically helps us to list all the command. Now what happens when you want to see all the hidden cover files? To see all of the hidden files, you type in ls-a. So ls-a basically gives you all the hidden files also. Right now there are no hidden files over here other than these two things, which are not technically files. So we're not seeing any hidden files right now. But what if we created a hidden file and we saw how that happens? So I will use the command mkdir. So this command basically allows me to create a directory of my own. So if I do mkdir and I type in the name of the directory that I want to write. So let's say I want to create a directory named fun, right? So I will type in mkdir fun. So if I do enter, right, so it's giving me permission denied because we are making this directory in a location that is not for a normal user to write. That is the root directory. We cannot create a directory. So let me do this. I will head back to our home directory. So I will do cd and I'll do the squiggly mark and I will press enter. So if I do a pwd, we are back in the home directory. Over here I'm going to do mkdir and I'm going to create the directory fun, and I'll press enter, and you can see that did not give me an error. If I do an ls again, you guys can see the fun directory is now created, right? So this is how you create a directory. Use the command mkdir. All right. So if you want to create a hidden directory, you do mkdir and dot. You add a dot. Every hidden file starts with a dot. So if I say mkdir and this one I'm going to say play. So dot play. So if I do an ls, I can see that only fun is being shown, even though I created the dot play file. So basically over here, this is a hidden file. That's why we won't be able to see it. If you want to see it, just do ls-a. Now ls-a basically gives you all the files, not just your normal files. So if I do ls-a, you guys can see all the hidden files over here. Right now we only created fun, but you can see all the other files also. You can see our dot play file that we created. We created a hidden directory and all the other directories, the hidden ones. All right. And if you wanted to go within any of these directories, you know what to do. You know how to use the cd command. Just type in cd fun. All right. And you can see that we are in the fun directory now. If I do a pwd, we can see. All right, so we have a lot of things on the screen. How do I clear all of these things? You can type in the command clear. So basically, clear command allows you to clear the screen. And let's say if you want to clear things without actually removing them, you can press Control L. So let's say if I press ls, 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 right? So I have a lot of these things. It doesn't look really good. I want to push it back. I can press Control L and it will hide all of those things. But you can see that the scroll space is still there, so you can still see all of those things. That means that we didn't remove it all from the output console. We just pushed it back up, right? So that is your Control L command. All right, so there are a few more commands that I want to talk about just right now that is related to ls. Okay, let me just tell you guys. So for that, what we can first do is, all right. So what happens when you want to head back to your directory, right? Let's say I want to go back to slash home slash Ubuntu, but I don't want to type in the whole thing. It's just behind fun, right? We know that if we go back from fun to Ubuntu, we can go back to whatever desired directory we want to go to. So instead of typing this whole thing, I can just do a cd dot dot. So this allows me to go back, right? So let me give you an analogy over here. Like in Windows over here, right? We have these two buttons. So this is to go back, right? Similarly in Linux, if you're using the command line, you do cd and you go to whatever directory. That is like clicking and going inside C drive. And if you want to come back, you just type in cd dot dot and that takes you back, right? So that is what your dot dot is for. It's for going back. Okay, now I want to use another command called ls-l. So ls-l basically is a long listing command. So basically it will list all the details. Right now there is only fun that is not invisible. So that's why it's only showing data for that, right? So you guys can see a lot of things. These are the permissions that are given to our fun file over here. These are the users that have access to fun, and the rest of the things like date and everything, okay, and time that was created. All right, so this is basically long listing about our files. Now, if I wanted to see long listing for all our files, not just visible, even the invisible ones, I will do something called ls-al. So hyphen a basically will show all files, and L will show the long listing of all of those files. If I press enter, you guys can see long listing of all the files. Now there is a shortcut for this. Instead of typing in ls-l, you can just type in ll, and it will show you all the things, right? It's a very quick way to do this if you want to check out the permissions and the users that have access to certain things, right? Okay, let me just check out the chat. I haven't checked the chat in a while. Let's see what if people have any questions over here. Someone's asking, sir, commerce versus science. Aditya, it's really upon you, man. Which, if you're choosing science, you have a lot of choices. You can go into a lot of fields. You can even come back to commerce. But if you are a person who's dedicated to commerce, then I would suggest you take commerce. But it's all on what you really prefer. Okay, if you think that it's very grueling to take science, don't take science. Take commerce. How to enable root logging in Ubuntu? So let me just show you that. So that will bring us to the sudo commands. So let me just Actually, before I show the sudo commands, okay, I'll tell you how to do that. Just one second. I'll answer the rest of the questions over here. Is Linux a safe operating system? Anirudh, yeah, Linux is a safe operating system. Now, it is safe in the sense that you have fewer malware over here, but it may not be safe if you start playing with everything without knowing all about it. So, I would suggest you start using Linux, but don't mess up any of the main parts of it, like going to root and deleting stuff. Just they generally don't do that. But I would definitely recommend it for a beginner because there's a lot of things that you can do with Linux that you can't do with a lot of other operating systems. Okay, so yeah, so someone's asking how to find the basic details of the Linux OS, right? So let me go through that. I will tell you how to do that also. There is a command for it. Now, before I start telling all the other commands, okay, fine. Let me just start with it. So we know what mkdir command does. It allows us to create directories. So if I say mkdir hello, it will create a hello directory for me. But what happens if I created this by mistake and I really don't want the hello directory? So to remove a particular directory using the command rm-rf. So this command basically allows you to remove certain directories. Now you have to mention the name of the directory you want to remove also. So if I do rm-rf hello, now if I do an ls, I can see that hello is no more. Now what is this -rf? We know rm is remove, and we know -rf is basically recursive force remove. So you remove the hello directory recursively and by force, right? Now if you want to remove normal files, let's say there is a text file and you just want to remove the text file, you don't really need to use this overkill of a command. You just type in rm and hello.txt and it will remove that file for you. Okay, we use this for removing directories. All right. Okay, now let's move on to another command, that is the copy and move command. So let's say that we have this hello.txt file. So if you want to create a text file or whatever file, just type in hello.txt and type in the use the command touch. So it basically creates a file for you, a text file for you. Okay, now if you want to move this file from this particular directory, that is our home user directory, to fun directory, what we will do is we will use the command mv. So mv, we will mention the file that we want to move, hello.txt, and we want to move it to fun. So I will type in here slash, not slash fun, sorry, fun. Yeah, and press enter. Now, if I do an ls, I can see that hello.txt is not here anymore. If I go inside fun and I press ls again, you guys can see hello.txt has moved away. Now, if I want to copy a file, I can use the command cp. So cp hello.txt, and I want to move it outside. So let's say I will move it to dot dot. So dot dot is outside, like backwards. That is like coming out of fun into the previous directory. So if I press enter, if I do an ls, we can see hello.txt is still there. But if we go back, cd dot dot, and if I do an ls, we can see hello.txt is also here, right? So we copied a file from that location into the previous location. All right, so this is a copy command, and we told you about the move command, the remove command. Now I want to tell you guys about the who am I command. So the who am I command basically tells you which user you are. Now, if I press enter, it tells us that we are the Ubuntu user with the name of Ubuntu. So that command is important. It basically generally lets you know what the situation is, like what user you are logged in as. Okay. Now there are two types of users generally. Like there are more types of user. You can provide specific privileges and all. But you have your root users and you have your normal users. So root users are basically like your administrators. On Windows, we have administrator access and everything, right? Similarly, on Linux, we have root access and everything. Now to run specific things, you need to use this root, you need to do it with root access. So let's say that you wanted to remove a file from the root directory. So instead of just doing rm-rf, you will get an error because you do not have the root privileges. To do so, you will use the command sudo. And if you guys have used Linux a lot, you know about sudo, right? So sudo rm-rf will remove any file because it has root access, and root access is basically like god access, right? If I press enter over here, right now I did not mention anything, so it did not remove anything, but it basically gives us root access. Right now I am right now logged in as the Ubuntu user. Now what if I want to switch to the root user, right? To switch to the root user, just type in sudo and su. So this is basically switching user. So if I do sudo su, you can see that it's changed from Ubuntu to root over here, right? And if I do who am I again, you will see that it is telling me that I'm the root user, right? So one thing to be careful about when you're working as the root user is that whenever you make any sort of changes as a root user, like let's say you created a directory, if I do mkdir root only, now you made this directory as a root, so that means that the permissions of this directory will be accessible only to root, as in like only person with root access can remove this, right? So if I do an ll and show you guys, so ll show you who is the owner and everything. So in here you guys can see the root only, the user and user group access is only to root, so no one else can remove this. So if I do an exit command, this will basically allow us to get out of our root access and come back to ubuntu access. We can basically try and remove this file. Should have given us an error. Okay, right. So the permissions over here, they're basically for all read and write. Okay. All right. So what I meant was, if you are logged in as a root user and if you do certain things, then the root privilege applies to them, right? Generally, that's the case. Now, with the sudo command, you can do a lot of things. If let's say you wanted to install something, you would use the sudo command. Sorry. What was that? Was this randomly closed my shell? All right, so I want to come back to a question somebody was asking in the chat. That was the question was how to find basic details of Linux operating system. So there are a few ways to do that. Right now, if you use the htop command, it basically gives you the details about all the processes that run. So if I press htop, you guys can see all the processes that are running and all the CPU usage, all the memory usage, and what time they started, and those kind of things you can see over here, right? And you can quit. You can see the set the commands over here. So if you want to quit, you can just press F10 and it will quit for you. Okay, so that is for checking out your process history and all those things. Now, if you wanted to check out basically all the details of your Linux system, right? For that, you use the command. One second. Yes, uname only. All right. So basically, you use the uname command for checking out the details. So your Linux kernel version, if you want to check out what the kernel version of your Linux is, then you type in Linux-R. It gives you the version of the kernel you have. And if you want to print all of the user information, you just type uname-a. It will show you all the information of your Linux instance, like what you're using, Linux, and then the IP. I mean, this is the name of the machine that is being launched, and you can see the name over here. Sorry, not the name, the timing that of it, the all the other details, like is it 64-bit or not, and if it's using GNA or not. All right, so that's the command we use for that purpose. So I hope that I cleared that for you. Now we're going to go to other commands. Now I want to tell you guys about the apt package manager, because this is again very important. If let's say you want to install a certain package, you guys might have heard of Git, right? Git is a tool that is used for version control. So if you do not have it in your system, what you can do is you can type in not wget, sorry. you can use the command sudo apt install and whatever package name. So let's say you wanted to install git as the package, right? So you will type in sudo apt install git. So it will start installing the git as package. But since here we already have it, let me show you something else that we can install. We can install OpenJDK over here. So I will do sudo apt install OpenJDK hyphen 8 hyphen JDK, right? So we'll install Java basically over here. So it's not able to find the package. Sometimes when that happens, what you do is you basically refresh your package manager. So apt is a package manager. Let's refresh it. To refresh your package manager, just type in sudo apt update. So it will update the listing in your package manager. And once that's done, you can basically install a lot of the packages. Now sometimes what happens is that even after you refresh it, you won't be able to install your package. That's because it's not in the list, in the package manager's list. uh, let's see, right now it will install. Yeah, see, it can start installing because we refreshed it, and if we press Y it will start installing, but we don't really need to install it, so I stop the process using control C command. Now sometimes what happens is it will not be able to install your particular package. So let's say I want to install a very obscure tool called Fox Hello, right? So this I can try to install it, but it will be like, I can't find this package. So if I know where Fox Hello is located, I can basically add that as a list in my package manager, or I can just go ahead and use the wget command. So let me show you how to use the wget command. So wget command basically allows us to get files from the internet. So if I want to install something called Apache, if I want to go ahead and install my Apache server, let's say I wanted to install Apache Maven, right? So not Apache server. Let's say I wanted to install Apache Maven. Maven is a tool. Now, if I go to downloads over here, how do I download this particular file, right? To download this particular file in my system, I will basically take the first, this is a zip file. I'll copy the link address over here. I will come back and I'll use the wget command. So wget command basically gets specific targets from whatever link you paste. So if I paste in this link, it will start downloading this file because it's a download link, right? If I press enter, you can see that it's downloading the Apache Maven file. And if I do an ls, sorry, if I do an ls, yeah, so you guys can see the Apache Maven file is over here, tar.gz, your file is located. Basically use the wget command for that purpose. Now, if you want to basically go check out if whether google.com is reachable or not, you can use something else also, something called curl command. Curl command is basically like your wget command. There are slight differences. Let's say you wanted to check if you're able to reach Google or not. So I would type in www.google.com and press enter. So yeah, that means I'm getting a lot of output over here. This is basically the front end. So that means I'm able to reach it, right? So the curl command basically helps us do that. Let me push all that back. Now we know wget, curl command. Now let's talk about what else command. Yeah, let me just show you all the miscellaneous command. So history basically allows you to give the history of all the commands you've used. Now the history command basically works on the user basis. If you're putting commands as Ubuntu as a user, if you put in commands as the Ubuntu user, you have all the commands that you put over here in the history. Now, if I switch to my root user and if I type in history, I can see a different set of commands, right? Only these commands were, put out as a root user over here. Cool. So that's our history command. All right. So there's one more command in the miscellaneous list that I created. Echo. I can echo small statements. Hello world, and you have your hello world, right? Okay, some more cool commands like if you press in cal, it gives you the calendar, tells you what date it is and specifically year and everything. So cal is pretty cool. And there's a calculator also if you type in BC. Basically allows you to calculate specific data. So let's say 10 plus 10, right? 20. So that's how you do it. You just put in the operator and get the output over here. So that's your BC command. If you wanted to, or actually use, I did interrupt it, right? So I use, you can interrupt processes using Control C or Control Z, right? Okay, so now we learn a lot of commands. I want to tell you about ping command also. Ping command basically allows you to send pings from one server or one system to another system. If you know the IP of a particular system, you can ping the that server. Basically allows you to check whether the connection is happening or not. If there is no connection, then you won't be able to send a particular ping. You can also do it for Google also. So if I ping google.com, I can see that 64 bytes are being sent, and it will give me a report after some time that it was able to send that many bytes and it was successful. Right, so I can close this now. So you guys can see it sent 16 packages transmitted, 16 received, 0 packet loss. So that means it's able to ping google.com. That means we are connected to internet. Now we talked about root users a lot and all. So let's talk about the users. So again, if I do an ls, we can see we have 3 files over here. And if I do a long listing of them, we can see that there are different users and user groups and different permissions for all of those things. Now, what are these permissions and everything, right? So how do we change any of these permissions? So let's take fun. Okay, so let me go ahead and switch to root. Okay, we already are root user. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to change permissions of fun so that only certain people can read and write it. Now over here you guys can see read, write, RWX. So R stands for read, W stands for write, and X stands for execute. So certain permissions are there that users can only either read it or either write it or only execute it. Okay, so we don't have any executable over here. Let me create an executable. So what I will do is I will open up an editor. So Nano is an editor, and I will create an executable file. So this, okay, I'll tell it what all of it does. Let me just type in a command. Install apply. All right, so let me save this file. Okay, so we have an executable over here that is install.sh, right? So as a root user, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the permissions of install.sh that not everyone can use it. So the command for doing that is called chmod command, right? So I'm going to remove the executable over here. X is for execution, and I will type in the name of the file. All right, if I do an ll again, so we have our install.sh file. You can see that there is no execution command, like nobody can execute this other than root. So if I exit out of here, all right, so if I am root user now, so let me execute install.sh file. Okay, I have not exited right now. There are stop jobs. Just hold on a second, guys. All right, so I exited it. Now I'm the Ubuntu user. Let me just check Ubuntu. Okay, now let's try to run it. Run. Why is it doing that? Does it do ll? All right, so let's go ahead and change the permissions for it. Root. Okay. right, there's something that is beyond me here. Uh, I changed the permissions of it, and we can clearly see that we changed the permissions, and we're still able to execute this. So I'm gonna be honest with you guys over here. I don't know what it is that is doing this. Basically, when you use the chmod command, it allows you to change the permissions of it all. Now it was working just before I started the session. I don't know why it's not working now. So yeah, let's just skip over this. This is something a little bit more advanced anyway. So okay, now I'm going to tell you guys about the editor. So if you guys remember the touch command, it allows us to create .txt files. So once you've created your txt file, right? So let's say we have the hello.txt file and we want to go into and edit this file. Normally we use either Word or Notepad, right? So come over here, I click on new and I click on notepad or text document, whatever, and I open it and I do it. But in Linux, what you can do is you can use something called already, which is embedded, called a nano editor. Now, a nano editor is like your text editor only. It basically allows you to edit files. So if I put nano hello.txt, you can see that this particular thing has opened up where it allows me to edit certain files. So hello.txt, I'm going to write some content in it. Hello guys, how are you? I hope you are enjoying the session. Yeah, smiley face. Let me close this. And okay, so once you've typed in your command, now if you want to save your whatever thing you've typed in, just press in Control O. Control O allows you to give it a new name and save this file. If you think hello.txt is fine, just press enter and it will save the file, and then press Control X to exit. Right, so here it is. And if you guys want to have any help in thinking of what to do over here, all of the commands are over here. So if I press Control X, I can exit out of that editor, and if I do an ls, I can see the hello.txt over here. And if I do a nano hello.txt again, you can see that my this thing, my string is still here. Whatever I've written, text. I'll exit again. Okay, so that's your nano editor. Nano editor is pretty cool. Now, if you want to use Vim editor, Vim editor is also there. Vim editor is a little bit harder to use, I would say. I mean, not for pros, but generally it is a little weirder for beginners. If you want to write anything over here, you need to press insert, and then you'll be able to type in whatever you want. And when you want to come out of insert, press Control C. And if you want to come out of here, then press Shift colon and Q, or WQ if you've written anything new. And we can put exclamation mark to forcefully do all of that. And if I do a nano on hello.txt, you can see that's extra stuff we wrote over here. But that is really not V editor is generally there everywhere in all the Linux distributions, and nano is generally not in every distribution. So that's the difference. So those are your pros and cons. Measure them and use whatever you want to. Okay, and one more important thing that I didn't tell you guys about is tab functionality. So if I do an ls, you guys can see all of these files, right? So let's say I wanted to execute my .sh script over here. So I will type in sh and I will now type in the name of install. But this is pretty long and I'm very tired. I don't want to write it. So what do? I just press tab. So when you press tab, right, Ubuntu has an option to auto-complete things. So if you want to auto-complete install.sh, you just type in sh and you press tab, it will auto-complete it by itself. If I press enter, it will start executing the whole file, right? Okay, so it's a wrong command, that's why I didn't execute. So basically that's the tab completion. Now tab completion is very helpful. You guys might have seen me if I want to untar a particular .gz file. So you guys can see that this is a .gz file. That means it's a zipped file. If I want to untar it, I will type in tar zxf and I will type in the name of Apache. But this is like a very intricate file name, right? What do I do? What do I do? So I just press tab and it auto completes by itself. So autocomplete command is actually like a saving grace. It really helps you out in a lot of specific situations. So if I want to go into this file, I can do cd and I can type Apache again, but instead of doing that I just press tab and I can just enter. So tab auto completion is really awesome. So you guys can make note of that. So those are most of the commands. Now I'll tell you guys about .sh files. So .sh files are basically your scripts. If you want to run a specific set of commands all together without typing them one by one, you can create a script. Like I created a nano.sh file over here. So let me just, not nano.sh, install.sh. So let me just open up .install.sh file over here again. So you guys can see sudo apt update and sudo apt install openjdk 8 and jsk. You should mention this as J dk and hyphen y. So I put hyphen y over here because when you install certain stuff, it asks you whether yes or no if you want to install it or not. So that's why instead of waiting for that, I'll just put a hyphen y here, and I'll put in one more command, java hyphen hyphen version. Let me save this file. Let me, yeah, now it's telling me permission denied. So it's only read permission. So you guys can see how it's working. If I go back, cancel this, exit, no, right. So we are in Ubuntu. Let's switch to sudo su because we have read write access there. Let me go ahead and change the access to it. So we don't have enough time to go through what these are, but just understand I'm giving it all the accesses, read write execute access. Okay, so I will go inside and install.sh, sorry, and we will go ahead and add the new thing that we wanted to add, sudo, not sudo, java version. So this will show us what version of java we have installed. Let me save this. As you can see, it didn't give us that error anymore, and now we can go ahead and execute this file. Now there are two ways to execute this file. You can type in sh install.sh, or what you can do is type in dot slash, yeah, and press enter. So it will start executing, and see it's installing. All right, so while it's installing, we basically covered all the commands that I had in for you guys. There's one more command that is gzip, basically, that allows us to zip up files. So you can just type in gzip and whatever file you want to, zip up. Like let's say if you wanted to zip up .txt file, then you use gzip.txt, the name of that file. All right, so basically those are the gist of all the essential commands that I think that you guys would need to start as a Linux user. Let me see what are questions you guys have asked, because I have been neglecting all the questions you guys have been asking. Now let's go through it. So I hope I answered your question, Shruti. How to enable root logging in Ubuntu? Is Linux safe operating system? I already answered that. Thank you, Kashyap. Thank you. Drawn, hopefully I answered your question of how to find the Linux details. You use a uname -r to find the version of the kernel you're using, -a to find the all details. So what happened? Didn't work. Okay, let's try one hyphen. It actually slips my mind. Yeah, so it works with only one hyphen. Oh yeah, there's one more thing I want to tell you guys. If you want to scroll through all the commands that you've put previously, let's say I want to type in Java version again, but I don't want to type it. I can just press the up arrow key and it will, show me the command. Yeah, so you can see I can go back pretty far. Yeah, so it goes back to all the way to who am I. So let's just put in Java hyphen version. It was not double hyphen, it's one hyphen. Alright guys, so that was it for this session. I gave you all the basic commands. I don't think anything else is needed. If you want to install Ubuntu on Linux, just make sure that you have at least 4 GBs of RAM and 20 GBs of hard drive space. You'll need that. And if you want, you can just launch a VM on the cloud, right? If you want to know how to launch a VM on the cloud, you can watch one of our AWS videos where we have listed this. Okay, all right. So let me just okay, yeah. Let's just set 5 minutes. Okay, we already crossed the time. Okay, I was gonna set a 5 minutes for all the Q&A, but we've already crossed our time limit. So guys, thank you so much for watching my Linux session. I hope you enjoyed all of this. Now, in future, I think we could do a little better by adding cheat sheets for you guys, so you can just take that sheet and use that sheet for whatever practice you want. So here's what, I'll think of a session that I can do maybe next week or the week after that, where we'll have more number of commands that you guys will need to know about, and I'll create a cheat sheet so that you get practice. Maybe you can practice by yourselves. Okay. All right. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I really enjoyed telling you guys and teaching you, and I learned some things from you guys also in today's session. And thank you for all of those people who joined the session to watch it. And once again, before ending the session, go ahead and check out greatlearning.in, because we have a lot of courses with amazing trainers teaching all of these courses. So you can enjoy them, create a direction, or set a foundation for yourself. All right. Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys in my next session.